there seems to be a really unique moment right now in sort of the trajectory of our country when it comes to public policy reform to try and essentially get better as a country at helping families get out of poverty and achieve work-based self-reliance, achieve that independence. And so first, maybe for our folks who aren't familiar out there, you run the Beyond the Cliff Coalition. It's part of the Martha O'Brien Center based in Nashville, Tennessee. Tell us a little bit, what do you guys do? Who are you guys? Why do you exist? Give us some context.
Oh, great question. So Martha O'Brien Center, we've been around for a little while, about 130 years. And for the last 80 of those, we've actually been located in the heart of Casey Homes, which is the largest public housing complex really in the state of Tennessee. So it's a very dense concentration of poverty. So we are a faith-based, place-based nonprofit that is working, as we would put it today, to end poverty in one generation. And so the way we do that is through a number of programs. We actually operate 2 charter schools in the community that our families live in. We also support the traditional, public school system by offering tutoring and other supports to kids that are zoned for those schools. We also offer, direct assistance, things like Meals on Wheels for older residents, a food pantry for families that need it. And really in the last decade or so, we started to lean into a more family-centered coaching approach. So really asking ourselves, how do we wrap around all of the services and supports that we offer as an organization around the family, put them at the center as they are seeking that better opportunity for themselves and for their kids. And so through that, we offer, career pathway trainings. We help connect to other sort of post-secondary opportunities. We also offer adult education for folks who maybe didn't finish high school, when they were going through the regular K through 12 system. So we really worked hard to align all of these services and supports around families so that they have that, that fair shake at opportunity. And, one of the things that we encountered as we started to shift into that more family-centered model was, we were expecting, okay, great. On paper, we had this whole thing mapped out where we're going to connect you to these career opportunities. You'll get that entry-level job. It'll be the start of your new career, and kind of the rest is history, right? And what we encountered over and over again for too many families was the benefits cliff. They were, taking these jobs and then suddenly realizing, oh no, wait, I'm actually, worse off financially, or something has not gone right with the public assistance I've been using to help my family up to now. And for too many, it was kind of one step forward, one step back, sometimes 2 steps back. And so that's really kind of what put us on this journey.
Keith, one of the things you said that really stood out to me is sort of this realization that you all had that essentially while you're trying to help these families, upscale and increase their earned income, it sounded like there was a realization moment there that there are actually maybe some barriers that does it essentially make work not enough alone to get out of poverty, which maybe is sometimes a hard conversation for folks to have, because that's the American dream, right? You work, you earn more, you get your way out of poverty. And I would agree wholeheartedly with all that. That's absolutely essential. But can you tell us about kind of that realization moment that, yes, maybe we need to keep doing those things because that is an essential foundation, but there's also some other things we need to address to sort of clear their path?
Absolutely. And that's, I mean, you said it really well. What we realized through our work and what we continue to do is to support those career opportunities. But what we encountered as we shifted into that a few years ago was that, as I mentioned before, that sort of 1 step forward, 2 steps back, and to put a finer point on it, as I mentioned, we serve the Casey Homes community. It is public housing. A lot of folks may not know this, but when you live in public housing, as you increase your earnings, you generally, this isn't 100%. This is the fun of public benefits policy. It's really nuanced, but for most families, your for every, essentially you're paying about 30% of your earnings towards rent. So if you start earning more, that automatically starts, your rent goes up. For a lot of the families that we served, right off the bat, they're losing roughly 30 cents on the dollar. If they're also using SNAP assistance to put food on the table for their kids as they transition back into the workforce, that's potentially another about 24 cents on the dollar. So just those two programs, if they're receiving just those two programs right off the bat, over half of that new earnings is gone. And we're not even talking about, payroll taxes, any income tax they might owe. Are they receiving childcare subsidies that could also, their copays could go up on that? And so for a lot of families, what we saw is they really could be essentially taxed over and above their new earnings. And that really, that's a policy failure that is holding too many families back, because it isn't a straightforward calculus that you would expect, right? You go, you earn more, you have more resources for your family. For a lot of the families that we serve, it just didn't work that way.
Can I pinpoint something there briefly? And then I want to ask you a question about kind of the objectives of the Beyond the Cliff Coalition before we go to break. But that notion of, again, what we call in this space the benefit cliff, and the way you described it, I think most people listening to that, so yeah, if you're on public housing or some other kind of public assistance program, it makes sense that as your income increases, like, we have to essentially wean people off these benefits. And so I think at first blush, I said, well, that makes sense that these benefit amounts would go down as your income increases. But from my perspective, it's that the question is the ratio. And economists use the term, I try to avoid economics terms, partly because I'm not an economist, so it's just pretending, frankly, but also because they're kind of wonky, and sometimes I don't think they do the issue justice. But the term people use is something like an effective marginal tax rate, that for every dollar you earn, this portion of it is held back or taken away. That applies in tax policy in some ways. But in this case, to what you're saying, that if you earn an additional dollar, and then various parts of the different public assistance programs you're on will be reduced, I think most folks would say, yeah, we need to taper it off somehow. But is it fair to say that the primary problem right now is the tapering is so severe and so steep that in many cases it doesn't actually taper? They actually, again, fall off this cliff, so to speak, that they're can actually be worse off financially in aggregate after a raise.
Exactly. And I'll say, I try to also avoid the terms like effective marginal tax rate. I have actually, I will give credit to Georgia Center for Opportunity. I think they coined the term benefit reduction rate, and I think that is a little more straightforward. And so when you look at that, it really is just, we all agree that there should be a taper, but it doesn't, what parent is going to look at their kids and say, okay, I'm going to take this job and we're going to be worse off financially. I'm not going to be able to put food on the table, but I'm going to do it anyway. So I think that's really what we're looking at as a coalition, is to make sure that every family, working harder does translate to more prosperity.
It reminds me of something something that I've found to be a helpful way to capture the issue when I've spoken about this before, is that to really humanize it, if I as a parent, so my wife and I, we have two little boys, and if I as a parent believed that me working harder and earning more would not actually make my family better off financially and may actually make my family worse off financially, that would be incredibly debilitating. I honestly, it's hard to imagine how I would process that and what I would do about it. And so that's what we're dealing with. And that's essentially what the Beyond the Cliff Coalition is trying to address, right? So maybe before, in a minute, we have to go to a break, but just give us the Beyond the Cliff Coalition itself. Why was that created? What do you hope to accomplish?
It's a great question. So Beyond the Cliff, really two purposes. One, Martha O'Brien Center is leading a large-scale pilot in sort of the greater Nashville area, that we're trying to answer the question, what would it be like if this benefits cliff thing didn't impact families? If parents and other caregivers could take that job without fear of being worse off financially. So we launched that, and what we started to realize was there was a missing space across the country for similar practitioners, whether it be state governments, local governments, nonprofits like us, workforce development providers. We just sort of discovered that there were lots of people trying to do this work or who were interested in this work, and they all felt like they were trying to figure it out on their own. So that was sort of one piece, is we wanted to create that space just for learning, for sharing best practices, figuring out like what works best to help families move forward in relation to this benefits cliff issue. The other thing that we really hope to achieve through the Beyond the Cliff Coalition is to take what we're learning as practitioners and translate that into policy recommendations. So we want to be very grounded in the evidence of what works, so that we can work with policymakers at federal and state levels to, implement better solutions, so that we don't have to continue to sort of work around a system that's not working for families. We can have this aligned at every step, so that nonprofits like Martha O'Brien Center, we don't have to work around the benefits cliff. We can just focus on what we do well, empowering families to get ahead.
Thanks for watching that clip of Defending Ideas. For the full conversation, click the link in the description, and make sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your shows.